Welcome back to the Endurance podcast series from a pretty blustery Gran Canaria. We're not just competing on the microphones this morning with the wind coming from that direction. If you're watching it, you'll see where I'm pointing, but also an airstrip behind us where the planes keep taking off and landing. But we would much prefer to be doing this in person. The whole point of doing these epics is that we get to go for a bike ride with our guests. 100% better than doing this virtually. And well, we call them epics, sort of slightly jokingly, but the last couple of days have properly been an epic. We've got on today's episode Sean Conway, somebody who I have been on a couple of awesome bike rides with before. But Martin, I mean, we call them epics jokingly, but they're not meant to be quite as epic as the last couple of days. It got pretty gnarly. I'll get your reflection and then maybe Sean's, but it turned pretty spicy at times.
The last 2 days have been incredibly epic beyond epic. So we've been up to 6,000 feet altitude to the highest point of Gran Canaria. We've cycled around the entire perimeter of the island, which was about 125 miles, 200 kilometers. But in particular, as we got above 3,000 feet, going up to the top, the weather just turned. And it was truly epic beyond the words of epic. The rain came in, the clouds, there was sideways rain, there was sleet, hailstone, there was a tornado. It was mental. We had to stop. We had to literally take refuge in a restaurant at the top for 2 hours, hoping it'd blow over. And it didn't.
I think sometimes when you've got a lot of experience, that's actually a bit of a risk, isn't it? Because but like the collective experience in our group was quite incredible, and yet nobody had quite packed the kit that we needed. Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure over the last couple of days. I mean, Martin maybe took it to the extreme there. I'm not sure we quite had hailstorms, but it certainly felt like we were getting an absolute battering up there. It's been fun though. It's been a few years since we've been on a bike ride.
It's been amazing, mate. Yeah, for everyone watching, look at me. You guys broke me yesterday. That's top 4, 5 coldest moments I've been on a bike, I reckon. The other 3 have been in Scotland, so I can blame you on all of them. Yeah, that was good. It was good. It was nice to do some climbing. I've not done climbing in years, really.
Gentle intro back into climbing.
Well, yeah, because everything I've done since 2021, really, on the bike has been flat-based time trialing, basically. Ironman, an aero position. So when I got to the hills yesterday, I was like, oh, this is new. Felt like I was back in, like, when I did, because you did the same route in South America, Mark. Yeah. That bit up, like Chile and Peru.
Yeah.
Where it's just up and down with the cliffs on the side. It felt a bit like that. It was amazing.
Yeah, yesterday was not a day for people who suffered with heights because, I mean, the exposure off the side of some of those roads was beautiful. I'd never ridden here before. Martin, this was your idea to come here. Great idea.
Yeah, well, I did Tenerife twice as part of my training with the super high volcano, so I just fancied a change. I'd never been Gran Canaria. I knew it was pretty high and scenic, so I thought, let's give it a try.
So we've shot these epics so far in Majorca, the north of Scotland, but now Gran Canaria. So ideas on a postcard from listeners and viewers as to where we should go next, and Enjoy Travel we'll figure out where we're going to go. Girona's possibly an idea next.
Cape Town.
Cape Town. Yeah, I'd love to get to Cape Town for some more riding. Maybe that's a place that Sean can talk about. That's back to... Sean, you talked about not climbing very much. Let's get stuck into... I'm assuming that a lot of listeners will know who you are, but that's always a risk. I think it's good to cover the basics. You've ended up specialising in the last couple of years in terms of your work now in Ironman. But, you know, your origin story is all sorts of mad adventures. So give us a potted history of what got you into this world.
Well, the short version of that is I used to be a photographer. I dreamt of being like this National Geographic photographer, but then landed up being a school portrait photographer, which is the total opposite. Instead of like being in the middle of the Atacama Desert, I was on a 3-foot square white background photographing crying babies. And I did that all the way until I was 30. And then I sort of, the thought process at the time was I want to go traveling, didn't have any money, had seen people like you cycle around the world and you seem to have sponsors and logos. I was like, well, that must be a thing. Like, people think of a stupid idea, go and get a sponsor, and then go traveling. This sounds great. And that's when I went for the round the world record back in 2012. And then that obviously didn't go so well. I got run over in America. Record ended, but I carried on anyway. And then tried to get back into work. I signed on the dole, lived with my mum in a council house, looking for work. And then after like 6 months getting zero interviews or emails or anything, I was like, well, I might as well try do some other record again because it worked last time. I got a bit of sponsorship, got me out the house, and that's when I thought of swimming the length of Britain. So that was 2013, and then what? Yeah. So the one question I do wonder is why I changed from cycling, because I loved cycling. It was my first love. I cycled Land's End John O'Groats as my first. It took me 25 days, but I just loved it. But there was something about changing sports that gave me a new challenge. So that's why I went for the swim. And then when I finished the swim, suddenly this thing that we do became a job, not by intention, just by suddenly sponsors came and then book deals and then TV deals. And then everyone's like, oh, what do you want to do next? And then that fueled the terrier in me, where the terrier is like, right, this is cool. I get to chase difficult things. I like the version of me chasing difficult things. Everyone else likes the me that chases things. And then then I just went off, and for whatever reason, swim, bike, run were the three things that I really was interested in, and then eventually combined them into just long triathlons, multiple iron distances, and that was all part of the bigger umbrella of the Grand Slam of endurance, which is 4 records: a world's first, a world's longest, a world's fastest, and the most of. So that was the overriding umbrella idea. Like, I was like, can I get all 4 of those? Like, it just seemed so impossible. Especially, world's first, they're quite hard to find nowadays, like legitimate ones. So I took that one early. That was the first one. And I was like, oh, well, that's the hard one. And then, just went through over 15 years nearly to get all 4. So that's sort of how I got into the space now, where it sort of started off adventure and then lent a bit more like you, more onto the sports side of adventure rather than the exploration side. And then I really thrive on that side of the market rather than on the exploration side. Like, if you said go and cycle around the world slowly, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know, just there's something missing there. But if you say like go do it difficult and long and try and break a record, then like, I don't know, it just engages a new gear in me, and I'm like, right, let's have it.
So the first one was the length of Britain. Was that was a first? Was it? That was the world first.
No, the world's first was swimming. Swimming the length of Britain.
So
Was the world's
900
first.
miles swim.
Yeah.
You must have had like a really nice yacht following you that you could jump on, have your breakfast, take a break, have a coffee, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I wish.
Something like that.
I wish. Oh, it's no one believed in that swim. So mostly the stuff I do, I would say 99.9% of the internet's been mostly supportive. Iron 105 was a little different because I'd never done an Ironman, so I got a little bit more personal grief there, which I took quite personally. I was like, "Hello, you've got to do 105 Ironmans because you've never even done one." And I'm like, "Have you seen my CV? Surely I've got this, guys." But the swim, really, like, that was the one that people were genuinely, sponsors didn't want to touch it. No one was willing to like sit down and like.
Why is that
give me
though? Just because it
advice.
was so
It
hard?
was considered. It's sort of. Was it considered? Most people thought it was impossible.
I still think it's impossible.
Yeah, like even Guinness. I applied to Guinness, and they just sent me a one-liner saying, "Oh, sorry, we do not consider swimming the length of Britain a valid world record attempt." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, fair enough."
So you just did it anyway.
Yeah, because I knew it was possible. Like, you know, you've got to prepare for these things. So I have these 10.5 pillars of endurance, and the first one is planning. So if you want to go into anything big, you've got to nail all 10.5 of these things, right? And the first one's planning. So I did all my planning, and if I had a superpower, I'm really good at like working out everything. And there was no counter tides. There was no big like Gulf Stream taking me to America. I knew it was tidal, and you get positive tide and negative tide. So I was like, right, well, I need to swim the positive tide, and as long as I can make some progress each day, it might take me a long, long, long time. I was going to make it. Obviously, you've got a lot of other things like weather and things like that. And I didn't quite expect to be swimming in Scotland in November still, but that happened.
So how long did it take you? 900 miles, right?
Yeah.
Land's End to John O'Groats, swim.
But
How
4.5
long did it take
months.
you? 4.5 months.
And to go back about, I mean, the beauty of spending 2 days riding the bike is we know the answers to some of these questions, but you did not have a super yacht with you.
No, back to because no sponsors were like, I mean, I had a credit card with a 3.5 grand limit on it. I was like, right, so I went on eBay and I just searched, sailboats, yachts, whatever, ticked to like the highest price, and then scrolled down, 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 down. I was like, well, this is not good. So I changed it to lowest price, and then literally it was like the third cheapest yacht on eBay. It was 26-foot wooden boat. I was like, well, I'll buy that, and then I bought it just in the pub on the eBay app. I was like, right, okay. And then it was down in Portsmouth. Went there the next day, gave the guy the money, and then he was like, "It's yours, mate." I was like, "What? What do you mean it's just mine?" He's like, "I don't have to fill out like a V5 for a boat." He's like, "No, it's yours." I was like, "Where are the keys?" He's like, "Oh, it's not locked." I was like, "Yeah, it's the key for the engine." And I'm like, "Wow, this is so weird. Like, you could just come and take this yacht tomorrow. Like, what's stopping you?" He's like, we're trusting people." I was like, "Cool, yeah." Um, yeah, so I had this rubbish boat which had no proper way to cook food. It had an old paraffin stove, the ones you put pressure on, but it never worked. So literally for 4.5 months, the only way we could cook food for all four of us, so me and 3 crew, was one jet boil. So we would just take turns boiling up like rehydrated food and putting. Yeah, it was horrible. My morning meal was oats, porridge, and banana, but with just cold water. So it wasn't heated up. So it was just like raw oats with a banana with cold water, because we had no fridge. We used to. Oh, I'm glad. Like I've forgotten half these things. So I think I've tried to hide them. But the only way, the coolest part of the boat, because it's summer now. Like summer was quite hot. Was in the bilge. So we'd have to lift a floorboard, and that's where we would shove all our, like, whenever we could get milk or a bit of meat or whatever, and then put it over. But then that's also where all the engine oil and the gasoline would flow down. So we had to like put a bin liner on separating the food from like the gasoline, and that's all we could do. Like because no one really wanted to give us advice even. Like I remember putting loads of stuff on open water swimming forums and yachting forums saying, "Oh, I need some advice," and everyone was just like, "Whatever, mate. Like it's not possible." So yeah, it was a slog, but I loved it. Like that was half of it. Half of it was like I wanted to prove to everyone, all the people saying, it's not like they were coming after me, but they were just like being polite, saying like, "Look, I really just think this is not going to happen for you, mate. Like genuine, I'm worried for you," type thing. And that was fuel for the fire. I was like, "But it is possible, guys. Come on, I'll show you."
And it wasn't just a world first for you, but it was a world first for your support kayaker.
Yeah.
And you were, because of the tidal patterns, you were getting in the water at 1-2 o'clock in the morning, just you and a support kayaker for 4.5 hour swims. I mean, I don't know how you can paint that picture, but for people interested in the topic of endurance, the physical, the psychological, I'm imagining that's psychologically unbelievably difficult. I mean, I can't imagine the framework for just going, right, okay, let's go. The tide's right, we're in, and it's going to be dark for this whole swim, and we're a mile offshore.
Yeah. And tow floats hadn't been invented back then. You know, like open water swimming tow floats, they literally hadn't been invented. So all I had was a little reflective armband, and then the crew had these rubbish little torches. Like, oh, where's Sean? I think he's over there somewhere. But yeah, no, M followed me. She kayaked the whole way, so she basically became the first girl to kayak the length of Britain inadvertently. So she was nailed. So she was next to me. I always breathed to my right. So she was always there, making sure I didn't swim off in the different directions or whatever. But the night swimmings were tough, but it was quite an easy psychologically. That I just asked myself this question: if you do every night swim, it's going to take you half as much time to get to John O'Groats. If you don't do every night swim, it's going to take you twice as long. And that was such an easy decision, because I'm like, well, I don't want to be swimming until January, so I might as well do this night session. The water's no colder, it's just dark. And then once it became a non-negotiable, other than there was other factors, you know, if it was really bad weather, or sometimes the tide and the wind would change, and we would be fighting the tide to get back to the swim start, because I'd swim quite far offshore, 3-4 miles, but the boat could only do about 3 miles an hour, so it would often take an hour to come into anchor, an hour back out, and if the wind changed, it would take the longest commute, we used to call it, was 48 hours. We had a stonking tailwind to get back to an anchorage, and then it took 48 hours fighting this headwind, tacking to get back to where I finished swimming. So those would obviously, then I'd miss a session every now and then. And there was quite a few of them. In the 135 days, I had 45 non-swimming days because of bad weather. Yeah. But yeah, back to your question, that getting up at 1 in the morning and getting in the water, I just made it a non-negotiable. If the conditions were safe, it was just a non-negotiable. And then once you don't question it, it's like, well, this is what I do.
Before you talked about how many pillars of
10.5.
10.5
Yeah.
pillars of endurance. The first one's planning.
Planning, experience. That's another one. So if anyone who goes on to do these things, the better they are at all 10.5, the more chance of success they're going to have. So planning, experience, nutrition and hydration, sleep and recovery, muscle management, mindset and motivation, health is a big one. Community, that's a really important one. There's one I'm missing now. Equipment is another one. You need the right equipment. You don't need the best equipment in the world, but you sort of need the right equipment. I've missed one as well. Luck's the 0.5 at the end.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 0.5 is luck. I think everyone listening was wondering what the 0.5 was. You need a little bit of luck.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We
Makes
just got
perfect
unlucky
sense.
yesterday, right? So if we were trying to race
you can't
yesterday,
control it.
we would have been slower, only because we just got unlucky with the wind.
Yeah.
However, experience, as you said earlier, we had a collective experience of hundreds of thousands of miles on the bike, yet we all forgot to bring a rain jacket.
We're going to Gran Canaria.
Yeah,
It's lovely.
exactly.
It's December.
Yeah.
Martin, you've dipped your toe in the water with doing half Ironmans, triathlons, so you're probably better equipped to figure out, the 105 stuff. But again, for the audience listening and watching who didn't follow this absolute epic, 105 full Ironmans in 105 days.
Yeah.
What's your initial take on that? Because when you did a half Ironman a month ago?
Yeah, one in one day.
Yeah. It's all right.
Yeah, it was good fun. Yeah. But I think from a half Ironman to a full Ironman, that's really daunting. That's a huge step up. Like we said the other day, it's not double, it's quadruple probably. So yeah, 105 Ironmans in 105 days. The prospect of one would be hugely daunting, I would have thought, to the majority of people alive.
Yeah. It was hard. It was hard in every way, that one. Because, as you say, a lot of people who do, if anyone's done a half, if you want to do a full, you need to go into it thinking and believing, and I think I'm right on this, that it's 3 times as hard. So I think in anything, if you double the distance, it becomes 3 times as hard. If you run a marathon, a 50 mile is not just 2 marathons. It feels like 3 after you've done one.
Yeah.
So yeah, stepping up to do the full, I had to nail there was no, all 10.5 pillars. There was no room to wing it. You can wing a half pretty much. You can sort of mess up your nutrition a bit. You can mess up the kit. You don't have to have the best kit if you want to get round in the time frame and all that. But for 105, I had to nail it every single day. And then I just went into it. And if a question I get asked is well, so how are you able to do these, Sean? I think I'm really good at micro-analyzing all my marginal gains, and collectively they add up. I hate the word marginal gains. I think it's been thrown around, but I genuinely how can I optimize all of those to the nth degree? I'm looking at saving watts on the bike with equipment. I'm looking at my nutrition strategy, my hydration strategy, my pacing strategy, my average power, what power I need to not spike above, and then just be regimented on time. I was getting up at 4:29 a.m. because I reverse engineered the time it takes to drive to the pool, and I needed to be in the pool at 1 minute to 5. If it was 1 minute past 5, I'd lost the day. So I made those sort of really, really specific, strong rules for myself, because then there was no degree of we'll get in the pool at about 5 o'clock. And that's, all you're doing, if it was 5 past 5, you're just delaying your recovery on the other end. And at some point, because then tomorrow it's it'll be 10 past 5 because I went to bed late, and then it's stupid. You must have had that around the world, Mark. You just have a time and you're right, I'm on the bike at this time. And
people talk about controlling the controllables, but when you're very specific about that, it takes the emotions out of it.
Yeah.
So you're no longer saying, well, I feel good, so I'll do more. I feel less good. If you sort of premeditate when you're feeling rested and in the planning phase, this is what I'm going to do, then it stops that. I always sort of say you've got no escape hatch to jump through because you've not built one. You're not creating a framework where there's a choice based on your emotional. Like I always say, like the safety comes first, but as long as you're safe to carry on, try and make sure that those things that where weakness could come in because you're like, oh, I don't feel so good today, so I'll do a little bit less.
Yeah.
At the moment you go down that slippery slope, you failed.
Yeah,
You just
totally.
have to have absolutely owned those decisions before
Yeah.
you start.
Yeah.
Which is great because I joked on the world with my team. Stop asking me how I feel because I could feel top of the world or rock bottom. It doesn't change what we
Yeah.
do today.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a sort of tongue in cheek because with Laura, my performance manager, clearly there's a well-being question, but for everyone else, it doesn't matter because how I feel today doesn't affect what we do.
Yeah. I had that. I had two rules of the crew because some people are carrot people and some people are stick people. Some people want the David Goggins, right? Like, fuck you, you piece of shit, you can go harder, right? And then there's some people want the carrot. They were like, oh, you're doing so great, keep going, well done. I'm like, I don't want any of those. Like, just no. So I just want facts. So with the crew, I'm like, do not cycle. If I'm if I'm feeling really rubbish and the weather's crap and I'm a bit behind, the worst thing you can do is come up next to me and go, well done, Sean. You're doing so great, mate. I'm like, well, actually, you're lying because I'm not. I'm behind by half an hour. I just want facts. So I had a blanket rule from the crew, like no emotion in the day. So like, don't be like, yeah, you're doing great, or and then no shouting at me if I'm down. It's just like, where are we at? What could we improve on? If today I was down by 20 minutes, I'd be like, well, why am I down? And then we reverse engineer. Was it my sleep yesterday? Did I potentially push it a little bit too hard because I got excited, or my kids came to see me for a bit, so I was like, oh, that got me riled up a little bit. So maybe I pushed the power by 5 watts too much, and now I'm paying for it today. Or was it sleep or whatever? So we were very analytical on that side of things by going into it and really micro analyzing all 10.5 pillars and working out what we were doing well and if we could improve on anything. And then as you say, it took all the emotion and the guesswork out of it. You just followed the system and then hoped that the averages worked in your favor, basically. And then the trick with the multiple irons is you had to be, because it's not that's the one thing, it's not an averaging record. It's a black and white record. So, for example, you can average a marathon a day running. So there's two types of records. You can average a marathon a day for a year, or you can run an actual marathon a day for a year. They're two different records. And the actual one's harder. Because the averaging one, you could do like 28 mile a day, 29 mile a day, and then once a week have a recovery day, and you'd get totally fixed. Whereas the Ironmans, I couldn't get, like if I was 100 meters short on the run when the 17-hour cutoff came in, that's it. Record's over. I can't go like, oh, add these miles tomorrow.
And there's a time cutoff.
17-hour cutoff from the time of the swim. Yeah.
How did it feel from day one, first Ironman, throughout the 105 days? Was the high points, low points, or was it really stable the whole way? Or did you get to a point where you felt like, oh, I've had enough of this, I'm really struggling? Or did you feel strong at the start, strong at the end?
The first week broke me. Yeah, I got picked up a bit of injuries. I call it help. Mike Tyson famously, he put it well in his career. He's like, everyone has a plan until I punch him in the mouth. And that's what it felt like. You go in with all the plans. You're like, this is awesome. I'm like, I've nailed my training. And then that first week's just all plans go out the window. All perception, your plans don't go out the window, but your perception of how you thought you would cope with it just gets your baseline gets set much lower. Like, okay, well, this is my new normal. It's going to be miserable. It's going to be difficult. And then I kind of got out of it. It took me about, the big game changer for me is I was getting daily physio. So that was the one I missed. I knew it. Muscle management was the pillar I missed earlier. I was getting daily physio because that's part of the 10.5 pillars is muscle management. And that was taking about an hour of my evening. And after about a month, I was still only getting about 7 hours sleep. And I thought, I wasn't getting quicker. And I thought, right, I'm going to stop the daily physio entirely. So like literally nothing other than a bit of my own stretching. and have that hour extra sleep. And that was that changed everything. You can see all my splits. As soon as I started doing that, I was getting my 8 hours sleep, and my body, that extra hour recovery did way more for me at that time than the hour of physio. And then I had weekly physio. So every Sunday, Simon Magic Hands would come and just fix anything that was really causing me issues.
How would you manage your sleep? So everybody, I'm sure, or the majority of ordinary normal humans have nights where you can't sleep for whatever reason.
Yeah.
How did you manage your sleep? Did you have bad nights, good nights, or did you
Yeah.
have some technique that you could just
No.
click your fingers, fall asleep, set your
Yeah.
alarm and wake
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, I think the first 10 days, my average sleeping heart rate was 89.
And what's normal? What's for
Well,
just
40, 41 at the moment. Yeah. Because my body had so much cortisol. I was trying to repair muscle tissue. I wasn't quite eating enough. I hadn't quite nailed it was okay, but if you're even 500 calories down a day for a week, you're losing body mass, you're losing muscle, you're losing your power. So yeah, the first week was tough. And because I was slower, the first 3 or 4 days, I didn't even shower. Like, I just didn't have that time. I'd come in late, get out my clothes, straight into bed. But then my skin wasn't breathing because I had sun cream on and muck and dirt and sweat. So that I was like, right, I just have a shower, Sean. So after day 3, I started having a shower. But yeah, it got better as soon as I got quicker. You want to be in these multiple day things. You want to you basically need to stay on the front of the wave. As soon as you fall on the back of the wave, it is so hard. And then what I call it's like the downward spiral, because if I was 10 minutes slower today, I'd have 10 minutes less sleep, which might make me 10 minutes slower tomorrow, which is another 10 minutes, and then another 10 minutes slower, and then you just go down, 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 down. Because it's not an averaging record, it's not like I can go, well, oh, today, like when I cycled around the world, you follow the time thing, and some days you do 200 miles, and some days you do 150 miles because of headwinds. You couldn't have that. On a bad day, I still had to do the full iron, and some days it was 13 hours, and some days it was 17 hours. And on the 17-hour days, I'm getting just way less recovery. So, and then that can be a downward spiral. So there was a lot of trying to manage that and get quick enough. And then also just be a little bit kind of realistic on your progress, because that was the other thing. I had a few fast days at the beginning, and then I was 3 hours slower one day, and I'm like, whoa, this is bad. And then in my head, I'm like, I should be back up at the 13, 14 hours. But you need to no, Sean, just be 5 minutes quicker tomorrow. Just be a bit, otherwise you just, if it's more than that, it's great. But just be 5 minutes quicker. And then it's all about just slowly getting back on the front of the wave. And then from day 30 on, I was like 30 to 60 were my fastest times. I was doing sub 14 hours in zone 1 heart rate, pretty much, and getting my 8 hours recovery. And also the most important thing is I was getting home before the kids went to bed. So I had about 20 minutes of rough and tumble with the kids, and that gave me energy. Like that was positive for my performance.
I'm impressed. I mean, I get the whole support from the family and the love and whatnot, but to actually have the physical energy to do something with them on the back of an Ironman,
Yeah.
but that's actually giving you strength.
It gave me
because it's psychological strength. You're burning up more calories,
Yeah,
but
totally.
it's giving you something else. I think that I've never heard anyone talking about that sort of staying on the front of the wave. I quite like that metaphor simply because it allows you to think about everything else other than the physical aspect. Most athletes just train hard and then they get out there and they figure out what they're capable of. But the 10.5 pillars, the way you talk about it, it's very much about what are the other things that can mean that, I'm in the best possible shape to show up. And when people go from single day events to multi-day to multi-week, I guess that's the journey that you're on, Martin. You've, solid 1-day rider, you've not ridden your whole life, but then going from multi-day to multi-week, it's a different game, isn't it? And I'm fascinated in that the sort of the attritional element of it, and what allows you to sort of after 105 days still be a functioning human being.
Yeah, well, you've just, as you say, if you nail all 10.5 pillars, and you're able to sustain a heart rate that's repeatable and a pace that's repeatable, then you probably could carry on. You probably find that around the world.
Yeah,
If it was longer,
yeah.
you probably would have just carried on.
Probably, but I'm fascinated in that balance between the physical and the psychological, because on the day after I finished, I was broken, physically broken. I mean, if you'd pay me, you know, a lot of money, I would have struggled to ride 240 miles that day. Now, what was different that day than the 78 days before?
Ah, okay.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So I was physically and mentally broken, and I don't think I could have gotten the back on the bike. But I think the reality was I was done, so I
Yeah.
completely let go.
Exactly. And that's why you had a hard finish line. I didn't. Because with the multiples, always in the back of my mind was how far could I push this? So even because I knew I didn't want to just break it by one. I wanted to go way further, but Caroline is like, no, come on, come home, please. So I always had that in the tank in my mental capacity and that was part of my manifesting. Part of my manifesting was I actually printed numbers and race caps to 123, just because of like I am going to break this record. Like I'm just going to go smash it through it, and that really helped with my mental side because it needed to be getting to 100. I needed to get to 102 to break the record. So getting to 102 was a non-negotiable. But then there was always this mental potential of going further. So I always had that in the back of my head from even day one. So part of my mental preparation was always, I can't be emptying the tank, because on your round the world, actually, yeah, in those last few days, you could really just go all out. Whereas when I eventually finished on day 105, I woke up on day 106 ready to go. In fact, I'd forgotten that it was finished. I woke up, I was like, oh, we're going. And I was like, oh, it's finished. I was like, oh, I was actually a little bit like, I was a bit gutted, to be honest. I had like a version of Stockholm syndrome for the Ironmans, because the way I put it, right, is imagine you had a job that no one else on planet Earth has, right? So no one else in the whole world had the job I had at that moment, which is doing multiple 140.6 triathlons. And it was hard and difficult and miserable, but it was really rewarding. Like, and the community aspect and the people that came and joined me, like and the money I was raising for charity, like all parts of the pie were all positive. And yeah, I was feeling miserable, but everything else was positive. The day I quit, all that ends. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want it to end, because I made loads of people, loads of friends coming and joining me, because I was doing the same route every day. I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people join me on the swim, bike, run at various stages. They wouldn't come for the whole lot, but they'd come for like 10 mile or whatever. And I was like, well, as soon as I quit, that all disappears. It literally vanishes. The fundraising vanishes. The people coming to see me every day vanishes. So yeah, I had this weird, like, kind of conundrum in my head of like, well, this is hard and miserable, but I actually, like, everything around it is positive, and I kind of don't want it to end. So I flipped a coin for the last few days. So that was the agreement I had with Caroline, because I didn't want to quit myself. So I was like, right, I'll flip a coin. So, I flipped the coin. So, well, firstly, actually, I knew I was going to do 103. So the record was 102. I always knew I wanted to do 103 because I wanted to know what my body felt like doing one I didn't have to do. I was just like inquisitive, like, well, is my body going to totally crumble because I'm like, you got the record, Sean, like, go home, or am I going to thrive because the pressure's off? And it turns out I thrived, because there was so much pressure on me not crashing out on the bike, mainly, or not getting injured, or pushing the power too high and then tanking the next day. But when I had the record, I was like, oh, this is great, so I got to have a bit more fun with it. And then from then on, Caroline and I agreed I'd just flip a coin. Flip a coin, heads say do another one, tails say quit.
So you got heads twice and then tails, and that was it, finished.
Tails, and that was it. And then for me, I was like, that's fine. The coin, I can blame the coin now.
Brilliant. How funny is that? The biggest and most exciting adventure I've seen in a long time. I watched your documentary before we came away this week. I watched it last week about your triathlon around the coastline of Britain.
Yeah.
On a bamboo bike.
Bamboo bike.
Nutrition by Sean Conway. Sunday dinner in a pint glass.
Yeah, and some dog food.
Dog biscuits. I found it incredible. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
So what was the thinking of the bamboo bike then, Matilda?
Yeah, so that was the world's longest record, one of the Grand Slams. So I was trying to break the record for the longest continuous triathlon. So in the world of multiple day triathlons, you've got the 1 a day format where you do swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run. And then you got the continuous where you do the whole swim in one go, the whole bike. So this was a continuous one.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted a bamboo bike, so equipment is one of the 10.5 pillars. And yes, you definitely need the right equipment. Like if you go to the Arctic, don't go in flip flops. If you're doing an Ironman and you want to go faster, a time trial bike is quicker. Like that's just a fact. However, you don't need the best kit in the world, and that's what I really wanted to tell people. Like you can get probably 80, I want to say maybe even 90% of the way on anything. Like don't let kit be the reason that you don't do something, because I see it now. I do a lot with youth sport. Kids are bad, but also adults are really bad. They'll go on a club ride and they'll see someone with a real fancy bike and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm obviously not as good as them. And then they get a bit disheartened. And I'm really a firm believer that any kit in the world will get you 80% of the way. And then, yeah, you've got those marginal gains for carbon plated shoes and aero helmets and whatever, right? But yeah, so I thought, right, I'm going to do the 3,500 miles, which is the same as cycling across America, on a wonky bamboo bike. And Mark came and joined me. That front wheel was 10 centimeters offline. So the bottom of the front wheel on the road. So people were driving up behind me like hooting, going, stop riding, your bike's falling apart.
I remember joining you down the
Yeah.
Scottish coastline, and when I sat on your wheel,
Yeah.
I was like, hang on a second, I shouldn't be able to see your front wheel and your back wheel while I'm sat directly behind you. This shouldn't happen.
It was, and then the other thing you couldn't also see is my saddle was like 2 or 3 centimeters off center the other way as well. So I had this real wonky position.
I mean, you were talking on the ride yesterday about having wonky legs. It doesn't help when
Yeah.
you sit on wonky
Yeah,
bikes.
that's true. Maybe that's to blame. But no, I'm a big believer that just whatever kit will get you somewhere. Just don't let the kit be the thing that stops you having a crack.
You've gone from like taking on your own incredible challenges to doing a lot of work empowering others. Working with the Scouts, with youth sport in Wales. I don't know if I'm getting the terminology right. With your own coaching. How do you think about these things? I mean, there's one thing like you intrinsically being motivated to do hard stuff, but I'm fascinated in the fact that you're also massively interested to unlock other people's potential, which is kind of makes you the perfect guest for the endurance podcast.
Yeah, so the Ironmans changed that all for me. Before the Ironmans, community wasn't one of the pillars, because I sort of thought I'm an island. Yeah, I had my crew and physios and nutritionists, and they were part of my crew. But I thought, well, actually, most people don't have crews, so I'm not going to have that as a pillar. And then in the Ironmans, just day after day, people were coming and joining me in the pouring rain. And it took me a while, probably took me until like day 60 or 70 to work out why. I just couldn't understand it. Like, why were people taking a day off work? So that's holiday days or unpaid days to come and run around a 15-mile loop on the, a bit less than that. How long is it? 20K loop on the run in the pouring rain in Wales. It's flat, it's boring. Like, why were they doing it? And then eventually I worked out that actually it gave them, that you were using me as an excuse to get out and be active and do stuff. And on the bike, I was like, what? Like, look, these people are coming and some of them were doing like 100 miles a day with me for a week. Like, the guys who worked night shifts, on the days they were doing night shifts, they would come and literally do 100 miles with me. And I was like, but why? I couldn't understand. They were like, you're the only person at the moment in Britain who I can go and do a fast 100-miler with on a Tuesday at 7 a.m. And they were like, this is great. I'm the fittest I've ever been. And I was like, wow, okay, this makes sense now. Like, they're not actually, well, they are coming to support me, of course, but they're also doing it for themselves and the community they started creating. So like, I didn't realize it, but they had a WhatsApp group amongst themselves, like the people who were coming and joining me, and that extended. And then I thought, well, I was then getting really quite sort of emotional and feeling quite proud, almost like I'd put these people, which I hadn't, they'd done it on their own. But I thought, well, that I was getting quite a lot of sort of self-worth, I guess, out of the community side of it. And then that just unlocked a thing in my brain. I was like, I feel like this is my next path. I genuinely think, I'm 44 now. I'm going to age out of endurance stuff at some point. Still be a while. Still got probably another 10 years, I reckon. But I, th- I think the next chapter for me is going to be giving people and helping people with the skills and the knowledge from a mental side to a physical side to go off and chase their own things. And I've just started dipping my toe in it. And I'd been doing it with kids for a while, but I'm now starting to do it with adults, with the Sean Conway Endurance Club. And I have to say, I love it. I love suddenly, having Zoom meetings with people wanting to do an Ironman, and they ask me questions. I'm like, I actually know the answer to that. Funny enough, of course. And I get a real kick because they then implement it, and then suddenly they're quicker, or they're not quitting or whatever. And yeah, I'm getting a big ego boost out of it, in the mammalian sense. But yeah, I love it. I love it.
So you've launched a platform.
Yeah.
For Ironmans, coaching mainly
Yeah.
beginner or startup, if you could call
Ideally,
it
yeah.
that.
I really
Startup Ironman.
Yeah, I coach people doing a full Ironman only at the moment, and ideally it's people who it's their first time, which is almost 80% of people doing Ironman anyway. But
And will they have come from a background of just like short distance triathlons or absolutely nothing
actually,
whatsoever? Or
the trajectory for people doing Ironman is often they're really good at one sport,
right.
and then they may have then kind of maybe done a half, but a lot of they're like really good cyclists, and they feel like they've got to a level, and they're like, oh well, this is now the next hard thing I want to try.
Okay.
Or running as well, same thing. Not swimming. Swimming is quite much smaller sort of pool of people. But yeah, it's just people wanting to push their limits, like we all do. It's great.
But I think I'm fascinated in the last 20 years. Ironman is still seen as the pinnacle. It's still seen as, we all know people who have run marathons. There's far less people who have done an Ironman. It's attainable for a lot of people, but it's still pretty niche.
Yeah.
Can you put some numbers to that? Like what the sort of the global sort of I mean, I'm just fascinated over the last 20 years where we have managed to normalize these extraordinary human feats. You don't need to be a full-time athlete. Clearly you need to be fit, focused, well organized, and the rest of it. But I've seen that even with around the world cycling. You don't want to take it to the point where like, it's easy. But we have, and we're both responsible slightly for this in the last sort of 10, 20 years of hopefully normalizing to the point where people look at these things and don't just sort of say, well, good for them, but actually, if I reorganized my life, changed my priorities, thought differently about what I do, I could see how I could do that. Now, whether they do that is another step.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated now where Ironman is still up there. It's still incredible, but it is attainable.
Yeah. No, I think it's the perfect balance of something that's really, really difficult, but you can still do with a full-time job and a busy life. Because if you just want to get around an Ironman, I think you could probably do it on 10 hours a week training, which is not that difficult. It's an hour every day, plus maybe a long session on the weekend. And that's if you just want to get done. Of course, if you want to go faster, you need more. But it has grown because of that, so 200,000 people a year do the Ironman branded events, and there's obviously lots of other ones, Outlaw and Norseman and Kelpman and all that sort of thing. Of the 200,000, about 3/4 of that do halves and 1/4 do fulls. And of the 1/4 who do fulls, they think it's about 70-80% are first timers. Because most people only do one. Because it is a commitment. It is a commitment. Especially if you want to do a bit quicker, you are putting in those 15 hours a week, really, in your peak phase. Your foundation phase, maybe it's a bit less. But you've got to have an understanding family and a work schedule that works around it, and access to a pool near you. So there's a lot of things. And also you need a lot of equipment, right? I think Ironman's, unfortunately, it is an expensive sport. Like, bikes are expensive once you get up there. But again, you don't need the best bike kit in the world, trust me. But yeah, so I think you're right. It does balance that. And numbers wise, I asked someone who's is a really good runner and has done an Ironman what it equates to if it was just a running event, and they think an Ironman, and I think they're right, is probably the same as running a 50 miler on your body. So I think anyone who does 100 miles, so way fewer people will do 100-mile running races than full Ironmans. Way fewer, because I think that now then gets into a whole different level of difficulty. But I think if anyone's wondering what an Ironman feels like, I think it feels roughly like running a 50-miler.
That's not very relatable for most of our audience, but
well, yeah, but I think if you run a marathon, just think, well,
3 times as hard
it's
as
3
that.
times as hard as that.
I'd just like to summarise with a few short burst questions, spur of the moment answer.
Yeah.
So, of your endurance career, give me the one highlight that comes to mind.
The one highlight. Oh, okay, right.
The best highlight.
Well, the best is hard, like, because yesterday seeing the full rainbow, like, that was quite cool.
Wow.
Yesterday was the highlight of your career, Sean.
Yeah, seeing
Amazing.
that full rainbow, man.
Riding with us was the
Yeah,
highlight.
yeah.
That's brilliant. Next question.
Yeah.
Let's savour that moment. That's brilliant.
The one thing when I was swimming Britain, I was coming up to Cape Wrath, a bit nervous, and I'm like, I need a sign. It's going to be fine coming around Cape Wrath. And I'm swimming along, and I look below me, and there was a bird, like a bird underwater. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And it looked up to me, and it winked. And I
No
was like,
way.
Sweet, we're going to be fine. I was like, this is a sign. The bird said we're going to be fine. And then it came up to surface, and it flew away. And then literally 10 minutes later, this massive storm came, and we nearly crashed, and the boat nearly got pushed up against the rocks. I was like, fucking bird, you lied.
An underwater bird winked at you.
Yeah, totally.
I mean,
It definitely happened. I
that's called
promise you it
hallucination,
happened.
my
There was no
friend.
hallucinations. But there's been loads of those sort of little moments of like, this would never have happened. Swimming with seals and dolphins, phosphorescence, as well in the Irish Sea. That's probably the first ones that come to mind.
Low light of your endurance career. What's the low light? The lowest point, even if just for a few minutes, or what's been the lowest point?
I've failed a lot. Like, I've probably, like, my Europe record took me 2 attempts. My Ironmans took me 2 attempts. So, having to fail something. I mean, they're all been because of injury, because there's certain injuries when you're trying to break a record, you just physically can't do the distance. Those I've always felt pretty low, but weirdly not for very long. I bounce back quite quickly because I'm quite practical. I'm like, right, well, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? But that first week when I'm at home, I've let down my family, I've let down the crew, I've let down the sponsors, I've let down, everyone. Yeah, those are definitely the hardest bits where injury has forced me to have to bail on something. But then again, I bounce back and always go and have another crack. So it's fuel for the fire.
And it's interesting that how other people see you versus how you see you. It's an honest reflection to say you failed at a ton of the stuff that you do.
Yeah.
But on balance, you've showed up, you've done it enough, you've muscled through, and that's not how the world sees Sean. So
yeah. Well, actually, I had to put because you're right. People always see the headlines, right, and they forget all the other stuff you've messed up in life. So I actually put a whole section on my website now. I call it hiccups because I like to reframe the failures as just hiccups. It's a bit lighthearted. It means, it just didn't work out. Let's have another crack. And it's a long list, everyone. If you want to go to my website and have a look, it's quite, it shows you that actually I've messed up quite a lot as well. But I've had that resilience and determination and being quite practical on how to improve myself, and I've gone off and had another crack. So, yeah.
So part of your triathlon around the coastline of Britain, you were starving and you couldn't get enough calories in. You had this lovely Sunday dinner or roast dinner. I don't know if it was Sunday. We call it Sunday dinner in Yorkshire anyway, whichever day it was. You had it blended into 3 pint glasses.
Yep.
What was the strongest taste? Could you taste the cabbage? Could you taste the beef? The Yorkshire pudding?
Good God, no one ever asked me that. That's good. It felt like I was just drinking gravy, pretty much.
why did you do this?
So I was really having bowel issues, because I was eating whole foods, and so when you exercise and if your cortisol levels go up, your digestion goes down, and you just don't absorb it. So you want to make it as easy as possible for your digestion for all the calories and nutrients to absorb. And it just wasn't. I was just going to the toilet. I was lacking energy. So I thought, well, let me just try blending my meals. Which I'd done on Swimming Britain, actually. But that was more from a chewing fatigue. I don't know if you had chewing fatigue on around the world, where you eventually just get to a point where you're like, I can't.
Yeah.
Whereas I could drink it. I'm quite good at being able to drink anything. So I was like,
even a full
even a
Yorkshire roast.
and then on the Ironmans, I was downing a 300 ml punnet of cream, full fat cream every day, which is 1,500 calories. And yeah, I could just open my throat and just be like, well, do it in a oneer. So, but yeah, from a science biology point of view, it was just trying to ease my digestion system to absorb the calories as easy as possible, basically.
Tempted to make it a habit, or was it a one-off?
Well, yeah, I mean, the every now and then, it is the running joke in my family, like on a Sunday roast, they're like, get the blender out. I'd be like, sure, would you prefer it? But I did it on the Ironmans as well. So my evening meal when I got home was whatever Caroline had cooked for herself and the boys. She would then just blend for me, and I would just drink it. Yeah, it means I could get the, if I had like spag bowl or carbonara, which is what, 500, 600, 700 calories probably for a small bowl. I could drink that in a minute probably, whereas sitting there eating it would probably take me 10 minutes. So it was a no-brainer, really.
Final question, what's next?
What's next? It's a really good one. I can't talk about it.
Oh, you can't talk about it?
No,
Oh,
I want to talk about it, but I can't talk about it.
Give us a hint. Can you give us a hint without giving it away?
It's back to swimming.
Yeah.
So that's the only tip I can give. But I'm doing a few other things. I'm doing a cycle the length of Jordan as a fun adventure. I'm doing Ironman Wales. It's my first ever actual Ironman, and I'd like to do a good time on that. So, yeah, that's my next sort of thing. I'm really wanting to try and get reward for like short events, and there's so many cool ones in Britain. Like, have you heard of the tunnel? That 200-mile run in the 1-mile tunnel in Bath?
No.
It's amazing.
Which tunnel?
So there's it's called the Coombe Downs or Coombe something tunnel. It's 1 mile long exactly.
Right.
And it's a 200-mile run back and forth.
Oh,
You're not allowed headphones,
Wow.
you're not allowed poles, part of the race rules. I did a half marathon in it 2 weeks ago because I was doing a talk in Bath, and I was like, let me go and see what it's like. So I did a half marathon, and that nearly broke me, but I kind of liked it. I was like, that same company do the Severn Bridge, 200-miler, back with Forth Severn Bridge. They also do, they're called the Line. It's the entire Greenwich Meridian through Britain.
Yeah.
As a run. So it starts up in Norfolk, straight through London, finishes on the south coast.
I'm fascinated with straight lining expeditions.
It was Beeline Britain, didn't they?
And Jenny Graham's done a few where you just take a line between 2 points, and whatever's in the way, you've got to cross.
Yeah.
And so rather than following the path or the trail or the road, if it's a river, if it's a rock face, whatever's on that line, and you're only allowed to deviate by a small number.
Like
it's
10
like
meters or
10
something.
meters each side.
Yeah.
So straight lining expeditions fascinate me.
Yeah.
I mean, way to make anything harder is just try and take a straight line, between here and that. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And you just got to get over everything in your way.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I inadvertently invented this game. Me and my mate Clive Rogers, we would play what we called the human snooker ball game. So we would walk in a straight line, pretending we were snooker balls, and we'd go over stuff until we hit something big enough that would then change our trajectory, like a snooker ball. So if we went to that tree, we'd hit it, and then we'd have an argument on, I think the snooker ball would go that way, and then we'd walk in a straight line that way until we hit something else. And then, so if it was a tree, we always fought, because obviously it's like the tree was like, which way would it bounce? But if it was a wall, it was quite obvious. And we would do this for hours around the school ground, like climbing over benches.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think we should make that go viral.
Yeah.
I hope you've talked about it before, but if not, this is the moment.
I haven't actually, no.
I think we are all grown-up children, and we should never lose that sense of mischief. So keeping that sort of creativity that you've just talked about is at the heart of expeditions, like doing hard stuff for yourself rather than other people. Just having fun with it.
Find the fun in it. That's part of the mindset.
Yeah.
Pillar is find the fun. Ask yourself. I always like to ask myself 2 questions in anything I do. What would this look like if it was more adventurous? And what would this look like if it was more fun? Now, I'm not saying make it easier. Like, the fun isn't like, you still got to do 240 miles a day on the bike, right, to break the world record. Making it fun would be doing 100 miles a day, but you're not going to do that. But you could still make it fun in the 240 by introducing small things. So those are two, I think, important questions.
How do I make it more fun? How do I make it more adventurous?
Yeah. What would this look like if it was more adventurous? You've nailed it with the podcast. We could have done this on Zoom.
Yeah.
You've done two things.
True,
You've said,
yeah.
what would this podcast look like if it was more adventurous? You've ticked that. And what would it look like if it was more fun? If we ignore all the rain and the wind yesterday, but this has been more fun, right? So, and I think that is a life's lesson I try and teach everyone. Just ask yourself those two questions, and suddenly you look at it from a different angle.
Well, we're definitely going to take that into Europe next year. Sean, we're going to wrap it up there, but how do people, I know that you're at this point slightly oversubscribed with your amazing new Sean Conway Endurance Club, but if people want to know more about what you're up to, you've talked about the 10.5 pillars, you've talked about all this amazing stuff, where do we go?
Just search me online, I guess. Yeah, Instagram, on it. I'm on all the socials nowadays, down with the kids. But yeah, SeanConway.com, Sean Conway. If you search my name on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube,
People will find you.
Everything. I'm all over there,
And you seem
I'm very proactive on it. So don't be shy to send me questions.
And you seem pretty keen to lead this sort of parallel track of continuing to push your own ambitions whilst also helping the next generation, which is exactly why we thought you'd be an ace guest for the Endurance podcast series, because we're on our own mission. Martin's stepping up massively each year with these crazy endurance bike challenges, and it's an absolute privilege to do that. But getting guests on who are also sort of living that ethos of what does it look like for me? But, inspiration, tons of that. Information, there's been loads. So keep on. I mean, I think we've known each other for a solid 10, 12 years now.
Yeah.
And it's been great to see your career, and I'm pretty excited to see what you get up to next.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been fun and adventurous.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
Job done.
It's been great getting to know you for the last 2 days. Riding together.
Till the next epic.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks, Sean.